Hello, and welcome to Candidates Up Front. This is the public interest election program of Berks Community Television and the League of Women Voters of Berks County. I'm Judith Cranus, a member of the League. Our November 5th general election is coming up, and we will be voting for both state officials and federal officials. The deadline to register is Monday, October 21st. The League is interviewing candidates in contested races, those who wanted to be interviewed. And for each race, the candidates will get the same basic questions and will have the same amount of time to answer them.
Two candidates are competing in the 9th Congressional District, Democrat Amanda Waldman and Republican Dan Muser. The district is the northern and western sections of Berks County, including Womelsdorf, Wernersville, Robizonia, the Heidelbergs, Center and Perry Townships, Burnville, and all the way up to the northern border. It also includes Lebanon County, part of Luzerne County, eastern Lycoming County, and Columbia, Montour, Northumberland, Schuylkill, Sullivan, Susquehanna, and Wyoming counties. Quite a territory. The U.S. House of Representatives proposes and passes federal laws which must also be approved by the U.S. Senate. They act on domestic and international issues. They serve 2-year terms and earn $174,000 per year, plus benefits and expenses. Please note that the opinions expressed in this interview are those of the candidate and are not the opinions of the League of Women Voters or of Berks Community Television. This interview is with Amanda Waldman. She is the challenger. Welcome, Ms. Waldman. Ms. Waldman, please. You bet. Ms. Waldman, please tell our viewers about yourself and why you are running.
I am a single mom. I have 2 boys. My youngest just graduated high school and is off to college. I've worked multiple jobs the majority of my life, and that was just to keep a roof over our head, clothes on our backs, and food on the table. I missed a good portion of my children's life because I had to work. And I know that my story is not unlike, I would say, 95% of the people in my district. I was raised to believe that hard work could get you anywhere. You could get anything. You would always succeed. You would be able to live. And in the years raising my children, I didn't get to enjoy a whole lot of their life or life in general. I was too busy living to work and struggling to survive. In 2020, I had the misfortune of waking up around 5:30 in the morning and hearing a certain voice on the TV screen that a lot of Democrats don't like. I'll leave it at that. And it spurred me to action. It was another series of just lies, just flat out lies. And that's not how I was raised, and that's not what I believe America is or should be. And I wanted to run to be the change I wanted to see. I want to see the America I was raised to believe in. And I want to see the people rise to the place they should be at based on their hard work and ethics.
Thank you for that answer. What are the 2 most compelling issues on which, if elected, you feel that you can make a difference?
Boy, there's a lot facing this country. The 2 most crucial issues, is that correct?
Yes.
I would say it's the divisiveness in our country. I was raised on a small farm in Lycoming County. My grandfather owned the farm. It was only family sustaining, and he worked for a union. I have numerous family members who are in law enforcement, who are military veterans, who are farmers. And I was raised that we could have civil discourse. I got to hear it on most Sundays at my grandparents' house with the men in the family and the neighbors sharing hard cider and a cigar in my grandfather's basement. And as kids are wont to do, we want to go and hang out with the adults, and we want to eavesdrop. But I remember the disagreements, and I remember the solutions, the ideas, and the compromises. So that is one of the main things I want to see change. It's something that I'm willing to work on. I'm willing to work with anyone, anytime. I don't believe this country can survive on just one party ideas alone. It's going to take both parties so that we can address the needs of all of the people, which our current elected officials do not do.
Thank you so much. What do you see as the three most crucial issues facing Congress in its next term?
Well, I just mentioned the divisiveness. We also need to come up with a long-term plan for the economy to address inflation and price gouging. I know a lot of people will disagree right now that price gouging is a thing, but if you drive through the 12-county district as I do, and you see gas prices change to a difference of anywhere from 30 cents to 50 cents a gallon within a 15-mile stretch, that is not inflation. And that is not our mom and pop stores raising prices either. They still have to pay for the gas from the producer. They're paying wholesale. They're not jacking up prices 30 to 50%. They have to pay 30 to 50% more. And the money in politics is ridiculous. My opponent, you said starting salary is $174,000. This is his third term. I'm going to guess he's over $200,000 now. How does someone who's making $200,000 a year increase his personal net worth over $20 million in just 18 months? That's a problem in politics. Term limits is also a problem. If we're going to limit the president to 8 years, I think everyone should be limited to the same thing.
Thank you for that answer. What is your philosophy on the responsibility of our country in international issues? If the continuum is isolationism to involvement, where do you place yourself? And if it differs from issue to issue, please explain that.
I place myself right in the middle of that spectrum. Isolationism has been gone since Teddy Roosevelt. For better or for worse, it is what it is. We're now so enmeshed in global economics that we can't just snap our fingers and go back to being isolationists. I believe historically we have overstepped our bounds in certain situations. And I think that we can say that with hindsight. Hindsight's always 20/20. So at the time we thought we were doing what we were supposed to do and what was the right thing to do. And we need to learn from every action we've taken in the past. I think the role of the United States should be to prevent conflict and promote stability while we're acting in the best interests of all of our allies and of all countries involved globally. We also need to keep in mind we have to act in the best interests of our own military members and not put them in harm's way needlessly.
Again, thank you for that answer. If you could please give us your thoughts on how the United States should interact with China and Taiwan, Russia and Ukraine, and Israel and Gaza.
I believe that the United States should always have the back of a country trying to fight for its own independence. We did that ourselves. And to withhold aid, the war in Ukraine does not require boots on the ground from any other country. The Ukrainians just simply want to live free from Russia. I don't know that there's a single American in this country or globally living that can say they wouldn't want the exact same thing. As far as our interaction with China and Taiwan, I believe we should build economic bridges. I believe we should be partners globally. We are not an isolationist country. We are too enmeshed in global economics. But I believe the CHIPS and Science Act that enables America to take back and conserve its own ability to make the microchips for our vehicles, for our cell phones, to become a leader in technology and be innovative again. That helps us by creating jobs here. And I believe we need to do that, but we can't do it alone. And I believe you said Israel and Gaza.
Yes.
To promote the stability and peace internationally, we need to stand up with our allies, enable them to remain independent, to fight for themselves. But when we do what we're doing with Israel, and I'm not on either side of this, I see the humanitarian loss on both sides. I want to preface that. It's horrendous and should not be happening. But when we are assisting other countries to maintain their independence, we must look at the humanitarian toll we are partially responsible for causing on the other side of that.
Thank you again for your answers, and I would move on with another question. It is that both parties say they are pro-family, but they propose and vote for very, very different things. What legislation do you feel is pro-family?
I believe a woman's right to make decisions for her own body should be codified in the Constitution at this point. It goes far beyond Roe v. Wade. Individuals' rights should not be dependent upon who we elect, who we elect as president and who they choose to put on the Supreme Court. This is a rage-inducing issue for me, being a woman, being a single woman, and knowing that it wasn't until just before I was born that women were able to have their own bank accounts. They were able to work and keep the money that they earned while working, that they were able to get a credit card. And it wasn't until the late 1980s that we were able to get a loan for a business without a man's permission. Pro-family legislation means that we're enabling parents to go to work one full-time job, to spend time with their children, to raise them, to sit down at the kitchen table and have dinner and do homework together, to attend their school plays and their football games and their soccer games. As a mom, I didn't have time to do that. The Democratic ticket does typically support those, and I can't say I agree 100% with every policy. I said in the beginning, it takes both sides to come together. But the pro-family legislation from the GOP right now, the pro-family legislation wants women to go back to when we didn't have the right to vote. They want us to stay home and only cook and clean for the family. No conversation about raising minimum wage. No conversation about the fact that women are individuals as well. And we have the right to dream and follow our dreams just as we raise our children to believe they can do as well.
I appreciate that answer. I wish we had more time to allow you to follow up even more, but we do have to move on. There are more topics, of course. What is the place of religion in politics, in education, and in government, in your opinion?
There isn't one.
That's a good answer.
Our Constitution says that our founding fathers immigrated to the United States before it was the United States to escape religious persecution. Religion has no place in government, in public education. It does have a place in our lives. I'm spiritual. I'm a United Methodist. I am religious myself. But I don't believe that my religious viewpoints should dictate what anyone listening or watching this video believes or does with their life. I do not have that power, and I don't want that power. I want us all to be free to believe, to worship, or not worship, however we choose, in whatever religion we choose to do it in.
Thank you for that answer. The ease of registering to vote, the ease of casting our ballot, and the power of our vote due to gerrymandering, those things change when we move from state to state. As critical as the vote is to the American concept of democracy, should there be federal standards that protect our vote no matter where we live?
Absolutely, 100%. That is the simplest answer.
Please tell us why you support or don't support the Freedom to Vote and John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act.
Why I do or
don't, depending on your view.
Well, I 100% do support the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. I'm sorry, my dog just tried to jump the gates. I do have 2 dogs. I support it because it modernizes the Voting Rights Act of 1965. In the the Shelby decision, the Supreme Court overturned the need for areas that have a discriminatory history because it was an outdated formulary. The John Lewis Voting Rights Act modernizes that, takes into consideration current events as evidence of whether or not they have to go through a process in order to change their voting requirements based on discriminatory practices.
Again, I appreciate your answer. Gun violence costs the U.S. $557 billion annually. That includes outfitting and training first responders against, quote, new and improved, close quote, weapons, retrofitting buildings to add security and health care. 96% of gun violence-related health care is shouldered by Medicare and by U.S. employers through health insurance plans. Gun violence is an inflationary economic pressure. Should Congress act on this issue? And if so, what do you feel Congress should or could do to decrease the cost of gun violence?
There are 1,000,001 different things that we could do to address the gun violence in the United States. Thoughts and prayers are not one of them. I'm a gun owner. I grew up on a farm. I know how to hunt. I know how to fish. I know how to do all of the outdoor sports. I'm a crack shot. I actually enjoy going and target practice. I do not understand why our military men and women have to train constantly with automatic weapons when they're in the military using weapons of war. But an 18-year-old fresh out of high school is able to walk into a gun shop and buy one. We do not have the mechanism from state to state for our law enforcement or our background checks to communicate with other states. So someone who is banned in Pennsylvania can go next door to Ohio, buy that AR-15 that they couldn't buy in Pennsylvania because they wouldn't pass the background check.
Yeah.
There are too many options. Banning all weapons is not something that's on the plate for me, but there are ways that we can regulate who has weapons of war in the United States. And most of our veterans agree with that statement as well. If they have to train continually, so should anyone in this country that wants to own one.
Okay. Recently, Congress, which hasn't updated immigration law since 1986, negotiated a new plan that people in both parties said was acceptable. At the last moment, didn't pass. In your mind, what does an immigration law need to contain for you to vote for it?
Oh, About, at minimum, 1,500 new border agents, at minimum 24/7 drone coverage of the southern border, at minimum new technology, advanced technology that enables our Border Patrol agents to scan vehicles, people, ground for drugs and illegal transport of humans. And it would require the enforcement mechanism to follow through. So that means that we do have to increase the budget of DHS. We would have to ease the hiring restrictions. There are a lot of checks that new agents would have to go through that some are not necessary. So in short, unlike my opponent who beat the drum for 2 months straight about how important it was to secure the southern border and what a crisis it was, and then when it came time to bring that legislation up for a vote, he went dead silent. This position comes with a microphone. I intend to use that microphone to amplify the voices of the people in my district. And my district supported that piece of legislation. Their current elected did not. And there is nothing that he can say to defend his choice to be silent when there is such a crisis with fentanyl, with all kinds of illegal drugs, with weapons. It's unacceptable.
Thank you. Wildfires, storms, and floods are expensive emergencies to deal with. FEMA ran out of disaster relief funding in the middle of the hurricane season, and in 2024, Congress allocated around $200 million for pre-disaster mitigation, projects to lessen the impact of emergencies. Should the U.S. spend more on mitigation, including climate change mitigation, so we need to spend less on disasters and disaster relief?
I don't think spending more on one is going to decrease the cost of the other. This is something that's going to have to continually be fought on both ends of the spectrum. More money is going to need to go into mitigation efforts as well as FEMA recovery efforts.
Because we have so many climate-related disasters, the cost of flood, homeowners, and health insurance has increased exponentially. Should Congress play a role in addressing this? And if so, what role should it play? And if not, why not?
I live on a mountain, nowhere near a body of water. I have a measly 4 acres and a very small ranch house, 3 bedrooms, 2 baths. I just got my homeowner's bill. That's why I'm smiling that you bring this question up. My homeowner's insurance, 19 years ago when I bought my house from my mother, was about $700 a year. My new bill, $2,900 a year. My insurance company doesn't really have an answer for that. I would love to say Congress should step in, but our insurance policies are more of a state-related issue. Do I think that the government could step in and put some regulations on the percentage of increase per year, or that there are different classifications of homeowners types? I shouldn't be paying for someone else's flood insurance, but that is exactly what is happening because of the climate disasters that we've opened ourselves up to.
Again, thank you for that answer. Our nation has more and more people living on the street because the United States does not have enough affordable housing. Is this something for Congress to address, or should it be left to the states? And if it does come up in Congress, what needs to be done in the program for you to support and vote for it?
So I was a former case manager at a homeless shelter. It's not just that housing is unaffordable. It is also that our employees, our citizens, our constituents do not make enough money to pay rent. Again, with the dog. If you can hear, I'm sorry. My dog likes to bark and whine. She's standing right here whining at me. So the problem that Congress could address, I think this is going to take both a federal and a state approach combined. At the federal level, we need to focus on raising the minimum wage. I would like to see the minimum wage tied back to inflation, re-indexed with inflation as it was back in the 60s. So when people say they want to go back, back in the 50s, you could raise a family with a single full-time job. That's because inflation and wages were indexed together. If you look at the numbers now, you can see right up through 1968 on a graph, they're pretty even with CEO pay and inflation. Now, this is our graph.
Yeah.
CEO pays up here, we're still flat. We need to put more money into community economic development. We need to build more affordable housing. We need to put more in the pot for grant money at our state level so that individual groups like Family Promise in Lycoming County here, they can go to the state and they can request grant funds and cover a certain number of families, a certain number of homeless individuals. I also want to see the economic assistance go towards our towns. Pottsville and Schuylkill County is another one of my areas. And Pottsville has a ton of empty apartment buildings on their main streets. No shops in the downstairs, no apartments, they're just empty. The town and other homeless groups could be using grant money to convert those to usable apartments, give these people who are homeless a job, because if you don't have a job, you can't get an address. If you don't have an address, you can't get a job. It's a vicious cycle.
My apologies for interrupting, but we do, there are lots more questions and we do have to move on. Talk to me about the Equal Rights Amendment. Do you believe that statement belongs in the U.S. Constitution? Should we have an Equal Rights Amendment in the U.S. Constitution?
Absolutely, 100%.
Thank you. Companies donate unregulated dollars to political causes as a form of protected free speech. The public can't see these donations. Do you think that large corporate campaign contributions influence votes? And should we have more strict campaign finance laws? Why or why not?
We 100% need more strict campaign finance laws. We also need to put pressure at the beginning of every session. New rules are set for the session for congressional rules. Right now, the committees, where any piece of legislation that goes to the House or the Senate gets sent off to a committee. I'm going to use the Prime Act, for example. It's a farming bill for livestock farmers that would enable them to send their cows to their butcher and sell them in a grocery store, which would benefit everyone. We would have healthier meat at lower prices. This bill has been submitted. This is the 5th session, so for about 10 years now. And it goes to a committee, and the minority and majority chair of those committees make every decision on whether a piece of legislation comes up for a vote and gets returned. That needs to change. Those seats are bought and paid for by our corporations. So good legislation that the people deserve never makes it back for a vote.
I appreciate that comment. So the two major parties seem to have very different views on the economic impact of tariff and taxes. I'd like your view. First, how do tariffs affect our economy? And then I think after that, we're going to just move to the closing, but I would like your comment on that issue.
Tariffs would increase the cost for Americans. The way our tariff system is set up there, and I'm not saying they're good, I'm not saying they're bad. They are part of our GDP, they are part of our overall economy. They're here to stay. To raise tariffs, and I'm assuming you're speaking of the plan from President Trump, former President Trump, that would actually cost regular families, regular American families, almost $4,000 extra a year. Because we are the ones that pay for that. You and I at the store. Every item we buy has a cost. And if we raise the tariffs on those items, say it's on our loaf of bread, or the ingredients to make the loaf of bread. We are paying for that.
We have about 20 seconds left. Would you like to make a closing statement?
My opponent has voted against everything that would benefit the constituents. He does not show up or respond to his constituents. I am a registered Democrat who grew up in a bipartisan family who understands how to have a conversation, how to get to the root cause of issues, and how to work together to come up with the best possible solution for the people. I don't take money from corporate PACs. I do not take money for lobbyists. I only take donations for my campaign directly from the people I will be representing. I am unbought, unbossed, and unapologetic, and I will remain that way. And I will use the power of this office and its microphone to lift the voices of my constituents and make sure their issues are heard and addressed.
Thank you, Ms. Waldman, for sharing your views with us. Viewers, please remember there is another candidate for the 9th Congressional District, Dan Muser. He has not scheduled an interview at this point. Please make sure to vote and check your voting status by going to votepa.gov. Thank you and good evening.